Let's continue fact checking 2023's predictions to see who was right and who was wrong. It's important not just to mention things and then never follow up on them. We want to do follow up and say, hey, who was right about some of these claims that they made? So let's go now to some of the anti-vaccine claims that we heard last year. I want to remind you about this young lady, Sherry Tenpenny. Sherry Tenpenny claims to be an anti-vaccine expert or a vaccine expert who is anti-vaccine. And a year ago, almost to the day, a year ago, she said in 2023, you are going to know so many people that will die from the COVID vaccine. Do any of you know a single person who died from the COVID vaccine? Here was Sherry Tenpenny's prediction a year ago. Judge for yourself. Was she correct?
Now we're seeing the tsunami of deaths that I've been talking about since the beginning of 21.
Are we?
Millions of people are going to die. You know, when Judy Mikovits came out on Plandemic at the beginning of that and said that more than 50 million people are going to die, and everybody was like, whoa.
Yeah. And that didn't happen, obviously.
And when they started interviewing me and they asked me, what did I think about that number? I said, it's way too low. It's going to be much more than 50 million people in America alone.
Right. So think about that. 50 million people would be about 1 in 6 people in America. Has 1 out of every 6 people you know died? And have they died because of the COVID vaccine? Think about how moronic and absurd these predictions are.
And we're already starting to see it.
Are we?
So the tsunami of deaths is coming. It's already here. And I believe that what's happening now and is starting to happen now is the tsunami of regret of the people that fell for the lies. Your friends and family members and parents and children and all they did to your grandchildren just could not be told otherwise.
Right.
But now that people are dying like flies, I mean, my business partner has 83 close people in his life that have died. 83.
Now, they may well have died. If that's true, they probably died of COVID. But the implication here is that those 83 people died because of the COVID vaccine, for which they have no evidence.
It's the beginning. And I predict that by the end of this year, every person in this room and every person listening behind here is going to know a minimum of 5, probably 10 or more close friends and family members that have died from these shots.
I will ask you, do you know a minimum of 5 people who died from the COVID vaccine? Do you know probably 10 people who have died from the COVID vaccine? Close friends, family members, as she says. I don't know a single person, to be totally honest with you. These people's predictions are bogus and they should never be listened to. And they do this every year. Let's go back to 2022. Here is the very same Sherry Tenpenny in 2022 making a prediction about what we were expecting by the end of that year. Realize that now it's been 2 years since this prediction.
The more shots you get, the more you destroy your immune system and the faster that happens. And it's anticipated. The German data says that by the end of 2022, every fully vaccinated person over the age of 30 may have the equivalent of full-blown vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS.
Now, do you know even a single person over age 30 who has vaccine-induced AIDS? I don't even know what that is. I've been able to find no evidence of such a condition in any medical journal. And I certainly don't know anybody who has it. They need to be held accountable. Sherry Tenpenny has been making these predictions for years. She's a few pennies short of a quarter, I think is fair to say. Hold them accountable. They have no business making any prediction whatsoever. And remember, if they had their way, they would outlaw these vaccines. Now, listen, I'm not an unreasonable person. Do I wish the COVID vaccines worked at preventing infection altogether? I would love it. I would love it if the COVID vaccine made it so that if I have it and I'm around 10 people breathing COVID onto me, I just don't get the virus. I would love it if it worked like that. It doesn't work like that. It's still something that is going to most likely keep you out of the hospital and keep you alive. And that's a great thing too. So we can recognize, hey, here's the ideal, the gold standard for what I wish this vaccine did. Doesn't do that. But is it killing millions of people and giving them vaccine-induced AIDS? It is not. And Sherry Tenpenny, I would love to find her somewhere and say, hey, here's the prediction you made. You said more than 50 million people would be dead in 2023 from the vaccine. Population of the U.S. is going up. Think about it. Population is 335 million. If she'd be right, we'd be down to 285 million people in the United States. We're not. The population keeps going up. Where are these 50 million deaths? What would she say? I don't know. I'm sure she would say she would have something to say, but I don't know what it is.